Dear white people, no one is asking you to apologize for your ancestors. We're asking you to dismantle the systems of oppression they built that you maintain and benefit from.
Before I start, I feel like I should apologize to you guys. I didn't necessarily do anything, but I am a straight white male, and I kind of feel like everything's been our fault for the last few years. So, which sucks, because like I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. I went to all black school, all black church, blah, 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 whatever white people say before they say something about black people.
Now the question becomes, do you understand how you maintain and benefit from these systems of oppression? You know, this reminds me of a meme I used to love. It said that particular people do not want to be blamed for their ancestors' actions, but they sure as hell don't want to let go what their ancestors left for them. If you inherit a business and you believe the profits is the only thing you taking on and you ain't taking on none of the debt, it's kind of crazy. Do you understand how trust and distribution of wealth and how we pass things from generation to generation? I don't understand why this concept is so hard to grasp. In closing though, nobody blaming you for nothing. We just think it's your responsibility to help us deconstruct the systems that you maintain and benefit from.
Guys, I think something is seriously wrong these days with white people, because why is everyone apologizing to black people recently? The former apartheid president of South Africa apologized to South Africans. I am seeing Asian people apologizing to black Americans. I am seeing white people apologizing to black people. Like, why is there a lot of apologizing recently within the white community towards the black community? Could it be me? Watch those videos and tell me what you think. I just found them and I was like, what's about to come? Because I feel like this is the calm before the storm, or is it the storm for them?
This is my last message addressed to the people of South Africa. I, without qualification, apologize for the pain and the hurt and the indignity and the damage that apartheid has done to black, brown, and Indians in South Africa. I do so not only in my capacity as the former leader of the National Party, but also as an individual. My conversion, to which I refer, didn't end with the admission to myself of the total unacceptability of apartheid. It motivated us in the National Party to take the initiatives we took. From the time that I became leader of the National Party, and more specifically, during my presidency. The road forward is a difficult one. But I firmly believe that if we take hands, and if all the reasonable people in South Africa put their heads together, we can overcome the challenges we face. And we can fulfill the tremendous potential that South Africa has.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. I am the wife of Pastor Les Robinson. Quickly, we've seen America rally behind court cases through the years over intellectual property and real property, oftentimes resulting in millions of dollars in restitution. We rally behind it without the blink of an eye because it's something that has been stolen, and restitution should be made. We cannot forget or ignore the fact that we stole people from their native land. We stripped them from their families, from their culture, and from their birthright. Yet white America has turned a blind eye to this and say they should get over it, or it's been so long and it doesn't affect the African Americans today because it happened so long ago. On behalf of myself, my family, and my ancestors, I want to publicly apologize to the African American community for our ignorance, our arrogance, our insensitivity to your cause, and for any part we may have had in the atrocities done to your people. I stand here today humbly to show my love and support. Whether enslaved or freed, we know that many African Americans have had inventions they didn't get credit for and therefore earned no revenue. Land was stolen from many, as in my husband's case. My husband has the deeds to these properties that state this land belongs to my descendants forever and ever. There should be no question of what should be done. His land has been stolen, his generational wealth stolen, the schooling opportunities he should have had stolen, his opportunity to grow up in a safe environment where his family could afford housing stolen. He was forced into poverty, running to and from school, hoping to avoid getting into a fight or even getting shot and killed. This wasn't the legacy his grandfather left him. His rightful inheritance was stripped from him. Where is his restitution? There is no record of the properties ever being sold. If this were a claim about a white man's property being stolen, I'm sure the court case would have been resolved by now. He should have the right to reclaim financial compensation for what was left to him by his great-great-great-grandfather, Daniel Blue.
Thank you so much for
so that he may pass it down to his descendants.
On behalf of the Boston Police Department, the Mayor's Office, and the entire City of Boston, I want to say to Mr. Swanson and Mr. Bennett, the entire Bennett family, and Boston's entire Black community, I am so sorry for what you endured. I am so sorry for the pain that you have carried for so many years. What was done to you was unjust, unfair, racist, and wrong. Say it again. To every Black resident, I am sorry not only for the abuse our city enacted, but for the beliefs and the bias that brought them to bear in the first place. There is no world in which a piece of paper undoes the harm of this part of our history. But it is my hope, and the hope of our entire administration, that you might accept this letter of apology as a small step toward accountability for the damage done by our city.
Things I learned by listening to Black Women, the series where you don't listen to Black women, so a straight white man repeats what they say, and maybe you'll listen to that.
Black people are not mules for your DNA. And before anybody comes for me, I am not talking about interracial relationships between people that love each other. I am talking specifically about how we as white people go and try to have children with Black people specifically so that we can get the physical characteristics of Black people into our children, which is a thing that we're doing. I swear, every time I think that I have understood the depths of how we exploit Black people, we manage to go lower. Here are some direct quotes. I've had white men tell me that they wanted to breed with me because I'm one of the good Black girls because I'm light-skinned with hazel eyes and curly hair. In high school, the white girls that dated the Black football players or basketball players would talk about their boyfriends in a fetish-type way. Example, can't wait to have light-skinned, green-eyed babies. I want mixed babies so bad. I hope our future kids don't have his hair. You know, I have to remove "it goes without saying" from my vocabulary. These are people we're talking about, with hearts and minds and thoughts and feelings. And they would appreciate it if you could stop treating them as some kind of genetic enhancement tool. There have been a lot of videos of white women asking, what can I do to help? What can I do to show Black people that I'm safe to be around? The overwhelming majority of Black women have answered this question by saying, talk amongst yourselves. Have the difficult conversations with your mothers, your aunts, your sisters, your friends, and most importantly, yourself. Dismantle your own internal biases. Don't try to appear safe. Be safe. Be compassionate, be empathetic, and don't think you deserve a reward for doing so. Your intent will come through without you having to say anything if it's sincere. Another big one was defend Black women at work, meaning if you notice that someone else is dismissive of what someone is saying because they're Black, stop it. Call it out. If a Black person has an idea that gets dismissed by a white person, who then suddenly puts that idea forth 10 minutes later, call that out. Make it visible. Make it uncomfortable. Many Black women talk about being scared of white women even more than they are afraid of white men. They point out how hypocritical it is that the same white women who said they'd choose the bear over the man are calling Black women crazy for feeling safer around white men than white women. If you feel the need to point out not all blank, doesn't matter what it is, then you are the person that people have to worry about.
A reminder that Black people are not a monolith and everyone has their own opinion. I am summarizing and simplifying in the hopes of educating. Also, I'm just here to break your social media bubble. If you care about these topics, go get the information from the source. 5 seconds of Googling goes a really long way. Moving on! Black women would like to remind you that racism towards black people is a white problem. Most of us are taught from a young age that racism is something that happens to black people rather than something that is perpetrated by white people. This distinction is crucial because it shows where the problem actually lies. Think of it this way. Imagine you're out at the Bass Pro Shop or the Whole Foods, and I just walk up to you and, apropos of nothing, punch you in the throat and knock you down. Now imagine that while I continue to pummel you, people just casually walk past and say things like, "Wow, getting beat up is awful," and "That person should really protect themselves," and "I stand with people that are on the ground getting the stuffing beat out of them." You see how ridiculous that sounds? That's exactly what we're doing when we don't frame racism as a white problem. And if we don't frame it correctly, we're going to go looking for solutions in the wrong place. We can only end racism if we educate white people that want to do better and ostracize those that don't. Black women would really appreciate it if we would stop trying to touch their hair. If you ask before attempting to do this, it's just rude and creepy. And if you don't ask, you are touching someone without their consent, which is called assault. While sadly it probably won't, this behavior should get you slapped, if not arrested. This is especially true for black children. Try to imagine a random adult just walking up and trying to touch you. Or try to imagine what you would do if someone tried to walk up and touch your child. So please, let's keep our hands to ourselves.
Disclaimer: black people are not a monolith, and every person has their own opinion. I am summarizing and simplifying in the hopes of educating. Also, if you're a white person and this offends you, this is for you. Sit down. Number 1, we are making it very difficult, if not impossible, for black people to care about American politics. 92% of black women voted for Kamala Harris. They organized, they got out to vote, which in some places is very difficult and time-consuming on purpose. And what did they get in return? 52% of white women and 59% of white men voted for a man who is openly racist. So they wish us well, but on the whole, they're feeling completely disenfranchised and above all, very, very tired. Some black people go even further and saying, let it burn, tear this bitch down to the studs. Maybe some of you will get a tiny taste of what we've had to deal with for decades, if not centuries. Maybe then, if it's not too late, you'll do something about it. Either way, good luck. One person added, "Did you know that there are over 1,000 episodes of One Piece? I'm gonna go watch them all." Tune in next time when we'll cover not telling your white child to find a black woman if they're lost in a crowded place. Because apparently that's something that we're doing. That's all for now, and don't forget to share this with other white people. Black people do not owe you anything. They don't owe you an education, they don't owe you a reading list, and they certainly do not owe you their Sunday afternoon to go to your protest march. They don't owe you a thank you for doing what you should already be doing, which is being a compassionate, empathetic human being. And perhaps most of all, they don't owe you a warm, fuzzy feeling for saying you're an ally or that you're one of the good ones. Tune in next time when we'll cover seasoning your food and why you can't eat at everybody's house.
We're going to talk about African American Vernacular English, or AAVE. It's a dialect of English that's used by many black Americans, especially amongst themselves. Most credible linguists agree that while it has some elements and common history with the accent used in the American South, it has its own unique grammatical, vocabulary, and accent features. The general consensus I've heard from black women is that unless you were raised speaking AAVE, it is totally inappropriate for you to attempt to speak it. There are a number of reasons for this, but let's use an example with a different dialect. Imagine you were out in public and saw a group of Scottish people speaking with a Scottish accent. Then imagine you walk up to those people and attempt to speak to them in that accent. This would be, at best, cringe-inducing, but it would more likely be assumed to be patronizing or mocking. Why then do we assume it's okay to do the same thing when we see a group of black people? White people also have a centuries-long history of dismissing AAVE as bad grammar or poorly spoken English, and concluding that the people who speak it are poorly educated and unintelligent, making our attempts to speak it even more of a slap in the face. So please, don't do this. It doesn't make you look cool, it's not funny, and it makes everyone involved feel really uncomfortable.